Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Bitcoin News Weekly Live. We got a big show ahead of us today, and it starts off with a bit of a conspiracy. For 6 weeks straight, Bitcoin has been bleeding. Lower highs, lower lows, leading to a 30% drawdown. But if you think Bitcoin has been taking it on the chin, just look at Michael Saylor. Since July, MicroStrategy is down 60%. And of course, he'll say volatility is vitality. But moves like this are more brutal than invigorating. So now everyone's asking the question, is this just another regular bull run correction? Or did something hit this market from the outside? A growing group of analysts think that they're seeing a pattern. This weekend, Hodel, Maryland dropped a viral article arguing that we're watching a direct clash between two monetary regimes. The older order, built on JPMorgan, Wall Street, and the Federal Reserve, and a new order, forming around the US Treasury, stablecoins, and a Bitcoin-anchored digital architecture. In this framing, Bitcoin is the ground that the fight is happening on, and MicroStrategy is the bridge between the system that exists and one that is trying to emerge. MSTR has become the conversion engine that turns fiat, credit, and treasuries into long-duration Bitcoin exposure at scale. And if you believe the US ultimately wants Bitcoin reserves and stablecoin rails, then MSTR is a crucial on-ramp. If you are JPMorgan, defending a system where banks intermediate dollar creation and control settlement, that bridge looks like a threat that needs to be severed. Now, line up the timeline that critics are pointing to. Last spring, Jim Chanos announced a loud long BTC short MSTR trade. In July, JPMorgan hikes MSTR margin requirements from 50% to 95%, cutting off leverage and triggering liquidations. September, MSCI quietly signals it may reclassify Bitcoin treasury companies as funds, risking their removal from major indexes. In October, MSCI posts a cryptic consultation update 16 minutes before Trump's tariff tweet sparks a global flash crash. And in November, after weeks of selling, JPM dusts off a 42-day-old document, the MSCI report, and pushes it as a breaking delisting risk. And now we're seeing traders report frozen transfers and failures to deliver on MSTR shares held at JPM. Is all this a coincidence or a coordinated attempt to crush the stock that symbolizes corporate Bitcoin adoption? Not everyone buys the thesis. We got Simon Dixit arguing that Saylor has already surrendered to Wall Street the moment that he levered up, and that the real resistance is self-custodied Bitcoin, not MSTR. But whatever side you lean on, one thing is hard to deny. The cycle is unlike any other, and the recent drawdown feels like someone tried to stop Bitcoin breaking out before it even started. The legacy system wants Bitcoin contained, and an emerging system wants accumulation. Saylor's strategy is standing in the middle. Whether this theory is spot on, we cannot be sure. But Bitcoin is now certainly more than just a speculative trade, and instead is the battleground where financial behemoths battle over its narrative. Welcome to Bitcoin News Weekly. Again, I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by none other than Avi and Jody.
Good morning.
The two brains behind 21 Rates. New friends of the Bitcoin News program, but we've become close friends in a short time. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Doing good. We got Jody on the East Coast now too. He's back.
Yeah, what's up?
He's
good. Yeah, the East Coast, right coast. Let's go.
The one thing I do not enjoy is that given the humidity on anywhere in the East Coast, if it's cold, you feel the cold. You feel like those little water droplets just hitting you every time.
He's in freezing Atlanta, you know.
Hot
here in New York, Rob, freezing our asses off. But no, glad to be on, man. We've had some fun on the Friday shows. We'll have, upcoming one, I think on after Thanksgiving, and then every single Friday after that as well. So not going to do one after Thanksgiving, Rob says. He's giving me the head shake here. But now very excited. I think there's a lot of big headlines that you hit on that we'd love to talk about. So excited to be on the show.
Yeah. So before we hop into Bitcoin News Weekly, our newsletter, first, tell the guys what you do at 21 Rates. What's the story?
Try to go first.
We'll hop into it. So with 21 Rates, the idea is that we firmly believe there's going to be an economy built on top of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the bearer asset. Bitcoin's the store of value. once you hold an asset, look at the most common asset that, really was the first asset, which is real estate. And so much of the financialization in the world is built off the idea that you can take 20% down and buy $1 million house, buy a $500,000 house. It's a crazy amount of leverage, but it's baked into the system where people don't see that as leverage. They're saying, hey, like, this is where you live, this is your home. So as our friend Joe Consorti at Horizon says, look, the next generation that isn't necessarily going to have price appreciation with their home. They should think about a store of value as Bitcoin, which is a finite fixed supply, 21 million. So we believe not that you have to financialize on top of Bitcoin, but that it's going to be a inevitable part, like death, taxes, putting your assets to work. So we built 21 rates, think NerdWallet for Bitcoin, custody, comparing cards, lenders, etc. Anything putting your Bitcoin to work. We do encourage self-custody and freedom money and self-sovereignty as step one and as your first guiding light of why to get into Bitcoin. But if you are going to borrow against your Bitcoin, like with prices at 85K, you need a little bit of liquidity. We want you to make good financial decisions. Free site. And I'll let Avi talk about a lot of the free education and content we put out weekly.
Yeah. I think 21 Rates was built on this idea that in the most trusted, quote unquote, industry, there was a lack of trust, right? And so you go to different lending websites, they're all going to tell you that they're the best. Every exchange will tell you that they're the best. So we wanted to create a third party, unbiased, where we come on, share education. As Jody mentioned, we're doing a lot of different ways to like trivia on Fridays with Rob. We're actually giving away Bitcoin every single week. But we're doing it in a fun way. We're actually learning about what's happening in the space, different education. We have our podcast, obviously, the Bitcoin economy. And that's how we met Rob. And we found out Rob is about a mile away from me. And so we meet up now occasionally in person, which is fun. But yeah, overarching Bitcoin economy is our podcast. 21 Rates is the version of our podcast for the people and for Bitcoiners to go out, check out if you want a different hard wallet, if you want to take a different loan out, for example, go ahead and compare and make your own decision ultimately.
And speaking of the podcast, you guys just talked to Eric Trump. How was speaking to the president's son? What was that like?
I'll go again. I thought it was very, very cool. I think the media portrays, them in one way, oftentimes. And when you meet someone in real life, he's about 6'5", so I'm like 5'9", so it was a little intimidating for me. Jody's got a little more height on that, but it was really interesting. He's a lot smarter than I anticipated, and a lot more like humble and down to earth. He was able to like sit with us 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the podcast started, as we were getting everything set up, and he was just a really interesting guy. I truly believe he's not just acting that he believes in Bitcoin, but he actually does believe in Bitcoin. It's not just like a front. And yeah, I think their team over there at American Bitcoin, I know we'll probably touch on this a little bit with MetaPlanet, but Treasury companies, no secret, have been hit across the board. But I think what they're doing with HUD 8 is very interesting, and it doesn't hurt to be the president's son. You seem to be able to get things done a little quicker as well. So definitely check that one out if you have a chance. And then Jody's, feel free to add anything, Jody, but we have another one too. We're hopefully releasing today or tomorrow. That's pretty big.
Rob, you gotta throw up the screen share.
Yeah. Okay. Let me take this down. Add to stage. There you go. Oh,
so,
yeah.
Didn't know we were gonna start with trigonometry, did we? So, if we're just talking about like meeting people, being alpha, meeting Sailor, you always got to think about the lean ahead of time. Like you're excited.
He was holding me to the side was what was going on there.
He was pulling you in.
Yeah.
You got to
be closer.
for your progeny, for the mash line, you always got to like keep that stiff back, keep that stiff upper lip.
I got to take that. It's too embarrassing. I got to take that down. Oh, cool. All right, nice. Well, let's get into it. We're 10 minutes in. It's time to go into the headlines. Every Monday morning, we release a newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly Live. We got a new site for the podcast, for the newsletter. It's really beautiful. Check it on out. And this week's edition is entitled "The FTX Fear." FTX level fear grips the market on clues point to a strike on MSTR. Bitcoin sinks 36% amid index delisting chatter, and sharp margin hikes targeting Saylor's strategy. So it's been a tough, it's like been 6 weeks, right, since the all-time high. It's just been straight down since then. The sentiment is in the gutter. People are pulling their hair out. They're looking for answers. What is going on here? And there's been some speculation. Maybe JPMorgan is conspiring behind the veil, trying to take down Saylor and make sure that Bitcoin doesn't rise to be the prime pristine collateral asset that drives a new financial revolution. But we'll see. There's some evidence we're going to dive into today, and it should be fun. But what we do every single week in the beginning is that we start off with our adoption section, because it's really bullish. You like to see Bitcoin out in the wild, making a difference in the real world. And here we have it, not just in America, but in South Africa. Pick n Pay, which is a grocery store in South Africa with over 2,200 stores, is reportedly processing up to $80,000 per month in Bitcoin Lightning payments, with usage up approximately 44% since March. So this is really cool. So Pick n Pay, they're a big grocery store. I think we have a video here of what it looks like to pay, with Bitcoin at this grocery store. So it looks like any other grocery store you see around the world, but you go to the QR once you get your groceries scanned, and you can pay with Blue Wallet right here. You scanned it, you can press pay, 25,000 sats, and your groceries are paid in Bitcoin. Boom, receipt out, done. Super simple, and I think that's the way that Bitcoin is going to be adopted by a lot of people. It needs to be just as simple as a credit card, right? There can be really no difference between the UX of paying with a card or with Bitcoin, or else people are just going to go with what they're familiar with. But it seems like things are really picking up for the Bitcoin sales over here. So they do 1.4 million Rand monthly in Bitcoin. I think it's 50 cents per Rand is the conversion rate. But yeah, that's 1.4 million Rand over the last 12 months. And according to the retail giant, Bitcoin payments are following mainstream retail trends as more crypto holders are now using their Bitcoin for everyday purchases. So the average transactions around 422, which is $25 transaction in Bitcoin. Monthly volumes are up 44%. Over 1,600 customers were recorded using Bitcoin at Pick n Pay tills last month alone. And just the demographics, and then we can talk about this, but the majority fall between 25 to 45 years old, representing digitally confident working consumers. Interestingly, over 30% of customers are above 45 years old, signaling trust and mainstream adoption. So had you guys heard of Pick n Pay? And what do you think about buying groceries with Bitcoin?
I have not heard of Pick n Pay, and I don't want to jump the gun if we're going to talk about Square or Block here in a second, but are we talking about that, Rob? I don't want to jump the gun here.
Another aspect of it. So you can definitely bring it up.
I think so that I had not heard of them, but Block News was massive with Jack Dorsey. I think they got 3 or 4 million different businesses now that will be 4 million businesses that will accept Bitcoin. And what's cool, I think a lot of people don't realize this, and Jody and I do, and we understand like the on and off ramps, but businesses, and I don't know if this is the case with Pick n Pay, but you could off ramp right away into dollars. So if they don't want to hold the volatility necessarily of Bitcoin, not every company yet is a treasury company. And so they may want to convert to cash right away. And so they have an off ramp directly in there that will allow for them to switch it instantly to dollars. So if Bitcoin drops 10 hours later, they're fine. It's still in dollars for them. So I think that's massive. Square has kind of been not as much in the news recently, so this brought them back in. And I keep saying Square, but their name is now Block. But anytime Jack Dorsey touches something, he's pretty intertwined in the space for several years. Some people thought he was Satoshi. I know that was another conspiracy back in the day. But 4 million businesses you can't ignore. And I think that is massive for the adoption overall of Bitcoin. And I'm excited about it. I think that's the original play for Bitcoin in the white paper, right? Is being able to use it as everyday currency. And so this is cool. It's kind of like the fight between savers and Bitcoin, but you can choose. That's the beauty of life, right? Is you can choose to spend it or you can choose to hold it. You can do the same with dollars. So it's cool.
Yeah, I think a big part on the beginning of if you think about grocery stores in general is think of the 1800s, 1900s, early 1900s US, is that you could get a line of credit. right? So you get a line of credit, end of the month, you settle up with your, local mercantile, you buy eggs and flour and meat, whatever. And, then you come around like 70, 80 years later, and you're able to do, this credit debit card system. But what had to happen in the middle of that is that you have an issuing bank of the credit card, and then you have a, merchant bank that lets them receive payments. And there's that level of credit where the issuing bank of, Visa, or, the partner bank Evolve that might be working with a fintech is allowing you to spend money that you're not actually putting up yet. You haven't actually put that collateral up yet. And I think a lot of the friction early on with the Lightning Network is that you're establishing a channel, you're putting in collateral, two parties are opening a channel together on the main Bitcoin chain that then allows them to interact and do transact via Lightning. But that's pretty complicated. You can't pay groceries for that. You don't know how often you're actually going to go to this, pick and pay grocery store. So I think from diving into Lightning itself, I think to Avi's point with Square Cash App is we're starting to see a lot of the complexity being abstracted away from Lightning use itself, because it was pretty grim, I would say, a year or two ago of is Lightning going to compete with stable coins? Is it going to be, that competitive? Can a person just pay somebody totally random without opening some long channel and putting collateral, to keep that channel open, for a long period of time? Now we're starting to have actually a smooth use case of payments.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk, of course, of custodial Lightning versus non-custodial. Custodial Lightning is super easy, right? I mean, but then the question is the Bitcoin really yours? Can you get it off onto your own wallet if you want it immediately in case of catastrophic collapse of whatever? But at the end of the day, Bitcoin's being used, right? And it's real Bitcoin. It's not some token on top of Bitcoin. It's actual Bitcoin. And the use case of payments with Bitcoin in South Africa is just absolutely exploding. I mean, look at this map right here. This is all the merchants that accept Bitcoin in South Africa. I mean, the map is just covered, right? Unbelievable. Absolutely insane. It's because Pick and Pay was the first major retailer in South Africa to adopt Bitcoin payments. But then these guys, Money Badger, came in and they opened up anything that has a QR code, you can pay with Bitcoin now. So, I mean, really, it's just absolutely insane the amount of Bitcoin merchant adoption and payment adoption in South Africa. And that leads us into our next story, because as you were saying, Block hopes to bring that to America. So they, of course, launched the rollout to all the Square merchants. 4 million of them can now accept Bitcoin if they turn it on their terminals. And these are barbershops. These are cafes, mom and pop businesses that do the majority of business in this country. They can now accept Bitcoin. So Block has done all this amazing educational materials where you can get packets to give to these merchants to explain to them the benefits, how there's no fees compared to the 3% fee that's on every single credit card transaction. But another part of their educational launch is that they put out this campaign, a public push for de minimis tax exemption on everyday Bitcoin payments, giving out free coffee in DC and launching a site to help people email their representative in support. So they're making a big push of this in DC to make sure the politicians see it. They're going around with this truck giving out free coffee and saying, hey, help make Bitcoin everyday money. And you can go to this website. They have a link that we put right here, btcismoney.xyz. And then it gives you this template that you can just put in your name and you find your representative and send them an email saying why it's so important that transactions under $600 should be capital gains free, right? I mean, it's the only way that Bitcoin, that's such a huge hurdle here in this country, is the capital gains fear of making small Bitcoin payments. So if we just got rid of that, you could buy your coffee with Bitcoin and absolutely have no headache. I mean, that hasn't stopped me from buying things with Bitcoin before. Outing myself here. But at the end of the day, a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to deal with a tax headache. Well, if we make this push, then that could go away. But another wrinkle to the story is that if you go to this link, you get this warning. This link may be unsafe. And you're seeing this on a continue anyway. And I guess now it lets you go to it. But there was multiple warnings on different browsers. They were really giving this link a hard time. btcismoney.xyz is very, very interesting wrinkle to the story. But yeah, are you guys pushing for a de minimis tax exemption for Bitcoin? You like that idea?
I love paying taxes. No, I think that's massive, right? To have someone like Jack Dorsey and the power behind a big company like Block, helping to get into DC's ear a little bit, because that's the only way I think this works long term. I think people are probably buying on Lightning and not thinking at all about the tax implications of that, right? And the reality is, I wouldn't either, right? You're kind of buying things like you would with a credit card. You're not thinking like this conversion is going to cost taxes on top of that, and so you'll find out in 2026 how many people didn't realize that, right? But the reality is, I think, that's the only way to really make Lightning work, ubiquitously, would be to have something where you're not thinking about you're buying a pack of gum and you have to pay, tax on that on top of that as well.
Cap gains. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's needed. But I think the news in general, I was just looking this up to see how many folks are using from Cash App. So Cash App, and my friend actually said this to me the other day, that he was at the barber example and he was buying Bitcoin from Cash App. But 24 million users are using Cash App to buy Bitcoin. So that's a lot of people. And then you think about Robinhood and all these other like apps are starting to cross pollinate, right? Where it's like TradFi starting to blur, TradFi and Bitcoin and crypto. And so, but they have the user base, and that's massive to bring 24 million more people online there. So,
yeah, Jody, go for it.
Yeah, I think I might have talked about this a while back on a podcast, but I was talking to the guy in Bend, Oregon, where I live, and he was, big Bitcoin guy. We actually do the meetups at his restaurant now because he accepts Bitcoin as a Bitcoin clock. And I asked him, okay, you have a service worker, front of house, back of house, chef, think of the bear, but even more like casual, like Sandbot, like the original The Bear, if you've seen the show. And these people that like aren't like don't have finance degrees, he's like, well, what's the best way to like orange pill them? What, like, if you're accepting Bitcoin at the restaurant, do you pay them in Bitcoin? Do you want to like have tips in Bitcoin? And he said Cash App. Cash App's the best way for him to get them started. It has a really good UI, UX, interconnectivity with like ACH and the banking rails. And obviously you have others like Strike and Swan and Fold that also have that connectivity. But he said Cash App was just the easiest one to do so. So I think definitely need to be celebrated. It feels like Jack Dorsey was a little bit quiet, once he turned Block.xyz into a company and got away from Twitter. And then we're like, okay, what is he doing in Bitcoin besides just wearing that Satoshi shirt that he seems to always be rocking? But now I think he's actually making like high impact things and also making people care, giving away free coffee because it's taxes. Who wants to go like stop and talk about taxes? I mean, I'll do it if I get free coffee. So I think that's a very smart move for them, to take the marketing to the next level, for the de minimis tax exemption.
Yeah, and just a few more tidbits is so 24 million people on Cash App buying Bitcoin is interesting because they have 58 million total users. So that's about half of their users are actually buying Bitcoin in there. That's great. And in terms of what Jack Dorsey is doing with Bitcoin, I mean, his whole company now is Bitcoin facing. Cash App, you're buying Bitcoin. Merchants are accepting it with Square. BitKey is how you store your Bitcoin. I got a little BitKey right here, right? And then Proto, you're mining Bitcoin with their mining rigs. So they're every single facet of Bitcoin they are focused on, and they want to make Bitcoin everyday money. And their whole entire company is focused on that mission, which is really, really cool. Speaking of everyday money with Bitcoin, Rumble has begun testing Rumble Wallet for Android users, now supporting Bitcoin, USDT, and XAUT, which is the gold stablecoin by Tether. The goal is simple, gas-free experience that enables native Bitcoin tipping for creators and streamers. We got to get this show on over on Rumble because now you can tip directly in Tether and Bitcoin. It's just in testing phase right now, but that's what their plan is to roll out. And of course, Tether bought a big portion of Rumble. They're investing heavily in them. Tether is investing in a lot of companies, but they're really pushing Rumble forward as sort of like their outward-facing tech conglomerate that they want to try to rival the big boys with. So this is a really cool addition to the Rumble repertoire. And yeah, it would be great if you guys over on LinkedIn there could tip us directly in Bitcoin right now. Would love that, right?
Right. How many users? I was just trying to look this up, but if you know Rumble's user base,
how many? I think they have roughly 50 million users too, as well.
Okay.
Compared to 6 billion of YouTube, but they're getting there one day.
I think this goes into the arching theme that we're seeing is we're in this creator economy, right? And like AI has accelerated that significantly. I think there's all these predictions of these very smart people that are out there claiming that like job loss, and we're starting to see it now with the corporations. Like Amazon did 30,000 people, and they weren't just like back working in the manufacturing. They were like actual like corporate folks, and so you'll see that proliferation. It's going to be this creator economy. So like platforms like Rumble, I think will be more important in giving people an opportunity to make money if they have a following. So yeah, we'll have to move over to Rumble soon, Rob.
Yeah.
Quick plug for the Friday show. We're actually not trying to tip creators. We're trying to tip the audience just for learning about Bitcoin, listening to like the guests we have on the show. So join in every Friday at 12 Eastern to get tipped yourself as an audience member.
Yeah, chance to win 210,000 sats. Wow, crazy. It's a lot of Bitcoin. One day you'll look back and be like, hey, wow.
We need that.
51 million users, by the way. I confirm there for Rumble.
Cool. So now I want to transition over to our legal section where we've got a pretty interesting story that came out. Kent Halliburton, he's the CEO of SAS Mining. Do you guys know SAS Mining? Have you heard of them?
Okay.
Well, he says he was scammed out of $220,000 worth of Bitcoin this summer in a sophisticated confidence scheme that passed every due diligence check until the funds vanished. So he put out a thread. I mean, it takes a lot for somebody to admit that they've been scammed, right? That they've been conned out of money. And Wired did a big piece on it. So this is the article: inside a wild Bitcoin heist, 5-star hotels, cash stuffed envelopes, and vanishing funds.
That headline.
Yes. So Kent, he runs SAS Mining. They've got mining operations around the world on multiple continents. He's in Peru, but they're in Norway, Paraguay, Ethiopia, United States. So he's traveling around the world, and he met up with these two quote unquote businessmen, Evan and Maxim, two representatives of a wealthy Monaco-based family. The family office had offered to purchase hundreds of Bitcoin mining rigs from SAS Mining, around $4 million, which the company would install at a facility currently under construction in Ethiopia. And so the story is he met these guys. They were supposed to be representatives of a very wealthy family in Europe, of course. He met them in Amsterdam. They took him out to dinner. They wined him and dined him. They wore very expensive suits and Rolexes and the whole confidence game scheme, So, and it was all leading up to this huge deal that I think would have been the largest deal in SAS mining history, this $4 million worth of mining rigs. And so they met him multiple times, and they eventually had him, they said they wanted to buy some Bitcoin off of him. So at first they did it with just a couple $1,000s worth. And yeah, they said they want to buy $400,000 in total worth of Bitcoin. And so then they had him download Atomic Wallet on his phone. And it had thousands of positive reviews. So it was the actual Atomic Wallet. They had him download it off the actual app store, right? But he then sent them, I was trying to earn this guy's trust. Again, a $4 million contract. I'm still looking at that carrot. So he sent them he put the Bitcoin in the wallet to sell to them. And then when he got back to his hotel, it was missing from the wallet, right? So they don't really know how he did it. He said he was not on the restaurant's Wi-Fi, that the most logical conclusion is that somebody was looking from afar, maybe with a super zoomed in camera or something, and saw the seed phrase that popped up when he first downloaded the app. So that's the idea of how it went down. But again, this is more of just a warning to everyone that be careful with your Bitcoin. Be careful with people who you do business with in this industry, because it is rife with scams. Why? Because of the finality of Bitcoin. Once it is sent, there's no customer support you can call to get it sent back, right? This is final settlement. This is Bitcoin. It's one of its best aspects, but it's also makes a hard truth that if you send it to scammers, it's gone. So yeah, check out this article over on Wired. Also, I mean, Kent, Saz Mining just did a crowdfunding campaign over on Timestamp. Go check that out. It might have just recently ended, but go check out what they're doing over there. They seem like a bunch of good dudes, and I think it takes a lot of guts to go out in public and tell everybody how you got scammed out of over $200,000 worth of Bitcoin.
That's wild. We brought someone on from the DOJ about a year ago, and he was talking us through pig butchering. So this seems like an elaborate pig butchering where, the first few transactions are good and they'll send you money back. Even they were saying that they'll do like 50,000. You're like, okay, they sent me money back. This is legitimate. Then you put $1 million in and then they go dark, again, going back to AI, like the sophistication here. I remember reading an article too about like a CEO who showed up, but they actually copied the voice of the CEO and the voice of his AE or EA, so executive assistant. And they like showed up on the call and they had this like junior sales rep basically wire money out. But because they showed up with their Calendlies and everything. So you got to be extra careful nowadays. It's pretty crazy the sophistication these guys have.
Yeah. This was like a business pig butchering, right?
Yeah.
And just a warning to people with AI now, they can copy your voice and they can copy your video too, right? And so it's very easy to make things seem real over a screen. So even if it's someone who's a family member or whatever, have a safety word, have something that only they know that you didn't send over the internet at all. And be careful out there because there's only 21 million Bitcoin and they're getting way more valuable over time. And so people are probably going to try to find ways to use AI to come and get them, right? And social engineering is the way.
Pretty bold to do like a Bitcoin mining CEO too. You would think that that's someone that like, is it, there's so many other people that would be worth going after, to exchange that. But I do think there is throughout the article, you see, hey, there's this like pressure, margins are tight. Bitcoin's down right now. You need liquidity. And so he's always looking at that carrot of like, hey, I can do whatever. I need to do whatever it takes to get this $4 million deal, like fly around the world, impress these guys, wine and dine them, whatever it takes to get that $4 million. And I think that really showed, it's not just him making a dumb mistake. It's when you get caught, you could be very smart and knowledgeable and know exactly what you should be doing. But when you get some deal or some kind of payoff in your eyes, it puts blinders on you. You don't really think through your OPSEC on what you should be
doing. The old Nigerian prince, you send me $1, I'll send you $10 million back. They're getting much more sophisticated nowadays.
Strikes again. Further in the legal section, we got Brink, which is a nonprofit that sponsors Bitcoin devs and Bitcoin development. So they sponsored the first ever public third-party security audit of Bitcoin Core by Quarks Lab, which found no critical high or medium issues and only minor low severity and informational recommendations. So Brink and OpenSats are the two big nonprofits that offer grants to Bitcoin devs and continue the maintenance of Bitcoin Core and other software in the Bitcoin ecosystem. But they just did this first third-party audit, and so far, so good. Everything looks like it checked out. They, of course, were some recommendations, but there was no major flaws with Bitcoin Core. There's been, of course, a lot of angst about Bitcoin Core versus knots. Is Core, have they bent the knee to financial interests and whatnot? But at the end of the day, this is the implementation that has been the most popular, of course, over the life of Bitcoin and has seen Bitcoin grow from a $1 million asset to a $2 trillion asset. This thing has really proved its worth, and having a third party come and take a look at it, I think is a notable thing. And everything checked out. Pretty cool. Do you guys trust Core?
I think, you were talking about Michael Saylor to start the show, and, his biggest risk was always the biggest risk to Bitcoin was someone that's very smart coming up with a really good idea. But the idea with Bitcoin is like, it should be very stateless, should be something that, big ship, small rudder, like the Constitution that doesn't get changed, throughout each administration. I think, like when we interviewed, which is coming up, Adam Back, he alludes to a little bit, his perception of it, where essentially markets should drive all of this. He thinks that you have good spam filters through having, fees associated with putting information on the blockchain. So you're going to have to a limit, this economically driven versus, some censorship driven by humans, which is always fallible. So I'd say, we're not technical on the side of like always trusting core on like every single piece. I think it's good to have an audit. We're more on the finance side, but I think it's good to, after the core knots debate, or after it starts to settle, having an audit, give people trust in the institution of Bitcoin developers that are trying to work towards a common goal and think for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And third, final piece of the legal section, we have Representative Warren Davidson introducing the Bitcoin for America Act, codifying the SBR executive order, allowing federal taxes to be paid in Bitcoin without capital gains, and requiring federal Bitcoin holdings to be kept for 20 years. So yeah, I mean, Trump issued an executive order to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We have not had the audit come out from that, which is supposed to be 3 months afterward, right? So that was the order was issued in March. The audit was supposed to be done by June. It's November, almost December now. Still don't know how much Bitcoin the total U.S. government owns. Maybe they don't know either. But they want to codify the strategic Bitcoin reserve into law so that if the next president comes in who's not a Republican or just against Bitcoin, they can't just cross it out with a stroke of a pen, and allow federal taxes to be paid in Bitcoin without capital gains. Yeah, what do you guys think about this?
It's funny. It's his first name is Warren too, because you think the first idea pops in your head is Elizabeth Warren, who's not Bitcoin friendly. But yeah, I think this is very smart, to be honest, because it's starting to like allow them to collect for the strategic reserve in a way. And I was talking to Jody about this too, with stablecoins being able to. They have to, when a stablecoin issues a stablecoin, they have to go buy treasuries with it too. So it's very interesting that they can now, as the proliferation, I'd say, of stablecoins starts to happen, it's a great way for like subtly start to collect Bitcoin, starting to increase the treasury as well. And so, over time, we have a self-sustaining business essentially from the U.S. government. But I mean, if you can get away from paying the capital gains tax, that's massive as well. So I'd only be for it, unless I'm missing something, which could be the case.
Would you actually ever pay your taxes in Bitcoin though?
I would not, but if I had
No.
if I had millions of Bitcoin or thousands and thousands of Bitcoin, potentially. But maybe for companies too, it makes it, if they don't want to hold it on their balance sheet, if they want to, do it. So it's interesting. I mean, they have to have a reason, why they're doing this. But
yeah, I mean, it's a budget neutral way of accumulating Bitcoin, right? If people pay their taxes in it, then they don't have to spend any money to go out and buy it. And so the Bitcoin Policy Institute, they teamed up with Bitcoin Quant. Good guys at Bitcoin Quant, have chatted with them. Bitcoin Policy Institute, have chatted with them as well. More good guys. And so they teamed up and created this platform, this model where you can see what it would be like if taxes could be paid in Bitcoin, how much money would be made, and how much would be added to the strategic Bitcoin reserve. So it's a really beautiful little model. I thought you guys at 21 Rates would appreciate this. Yeah. Look from your site. And yeah, if you guys haven't chatted with the Bitcoin Quant guys, Rohan.
Rohan. Yeah, we met him
a while back. Cool. You brought up a good point though earlier, just I wanted to touch on, because they remember that whole thing with gold. Like that was a big headline like a few months ago, where we didn't know how much gold we have, and then it kind of just like shifted to Epstein, and it's kind of wag the dog, and it's out of your mind. I didn't forget, like we still don't know how gold we have in the U.S., let alone Bitcoin right now. So we need to audit our own, the own government here.
And for 2 weeks, like Trump was going out. Yeah, we're going to see how much gold is in Fort Knox. Maybe there's nothing. Maybe there's a lot. I don't know. And then never saying.
Then new distraction.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I want to get into the market section because I know you guys are big into this. Avi, why don't you take it away about this Abu Dhabi news?
Yeah, so I thought you sent these over beforehand, so I did a quick little research, but they took their IBIT from 2.4 million shares to almost 8 million by the end of the Q3. So they have now $518 million, $65 per share roughly right now, and that was their average purchase price. So you're seeing this around the world right now. While we're seeing, I think, as retailers, the pricing go down. You have your friends starting to bicker again, being like, "Oh, the Bitcoin guy," But what you're seeing in the background here is things like this. I know Abu Dhabi just invested into IBIT. I saw El Salvador bought, I think, 100+ Bitcoin as well recently. 1,000 Bitcoin, so 10x that. But overall, what you're seeing is like the smart money, the governments. They may be just trying to distract people so they can collect as much as possible right now. And so seeing this is quite interesting. I know they have unlimited money, so this may be not that big for them overall, but I think it's a big shakeout here that we're starting to see, where they want to scare out retailers one last time as, the institutions and governments start to buy more and more.
Yeah, they bought, they held, and they grew their position. And when the spokesperson from the Sovereign Wealth Fund was asked about it, they said, "We view Bitcoin as a store of value similar to gold. And as the world continues to move toward a more digital future, we see Bitcoin playing an increasingly important role alongside gold." Well, I think that just sums it up all right there, right? I mean, if a sovereign wealth fund of one of the richest per capita nations in the world is going to go out there and say, "Hey, we see Bitcoin right on the same pedestal as gold, a 5,000-year-old asset versus a 17-year-old asset," I mean, it's pretty absolutely, it's mind-blowing. But that's where the money's going, and $500 million is nothing to shake your finger at. That's a real bet, no matter who you are. Jody, do you have any opinions?
Yeah, I think it definitely needs to zoom out, right? Like when prices going up, I think people need to understand that hedge fund managers, investment funds, they rather sell a little bit early than sell too late, right? They'd rather sell at 110K than waiting for Bitcoin to go to 150 and then ends up dropping to 85, 84, 82, whatever it was. And I think in the same way, when they see, not saying this is the bottom, but I do see it as they see price go under 100K and they're saying, "Hey, if this is a long-term game for us, this is value. We think, it can continue going lower, but instead of trying to catch the dip perfectly, let's just start stacking, DCAing as in size as they're doing." And it's great. I think very validating to see, someone that's outside of, the typical, say, conspiracies or the typical, like, we've talked about of like who's going after strategy, and is it, Wall Street versus Bitcoin, and Abu Dhabi is a little bit different, right? Like they could be connected in some ways to that, but it's not like this party versus the other party. It's a completely separate sovereign wealth fund in the Middle East, and we're having Bitcoin MENA there. Is it 2 weeks from now is Bitcoin MENA? So I think it's great to see ahead of that conference, build some excitement.
Nice. Yes. Well, the JPMorgan stuff, MSTR, the big story of the weekend, we're going to get into that. But before we do, everybody who's watching the show, thank you so much for tuning in. If you could hit that like button, share it, repost it on X, share the YouTube link with your friends. Would love to have more and more people here every Monday because we teach about Bitcoin, right? We talk about the headlines. I think it's a very accessible show, especially for new people and for old heads as well. Staying on top of all the biggest news. And the people who make this show possible are none other than our good friends over at Rhino. So before getting access to Bitcoin financial services was historically slow, clunky, and scattered across multiple platforms, each with its own limitations. Well, Rhino over here, they are changing that. Rhino is a next generation Bitcoin banking app designed by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Here's what you can do with Rhino. Of course, you can buy Bitcoin with some of the lowest fees on the market. That means more sats for every dollar that you spend. You can make payments on the Lightning Network, send your Bitcoin instantly with near zero fees anywhere on the world. And of course, you can send cash globally, fast and easy. Remittances, you got friends or family in a foreign country, you want to send them cash, they don't know Bitcoin, you can send that perfect for those purposes. And then you can even have automatic savings set up, DCA and limit orders on a schedule, however you like it. They make it very easy to fine tune how you stack your Bitcoin on a recurring order. And this is just the beginning, because coming soon, Rhino will let you pay your bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and even save for retirement all within the app seamlessly. And of course, security is their top priority. Rhino protects your Bitcoin with biometric verification, 24/7 fraud protection, and confidence of knowing your Bitcoin will never, ever, ever be rehypothecated. For long-term holders, you can secure your Bitcoin using a single sig or a multi-signature self-custody solution such as Casa. They've teamed up with Casa, and you can use the Rhino app as one of your keys for your multi-sig with them. So go today to rhinobitcoin.com or just tap the link below in the YouTube description. Use the code Bitcoin News when you sign up, and you'll get $10 of Bitcoin right into your wallet for free. So you got nothing to lose, and you got $10 of Bitcoin for free to gain. So go check out Rhino. They're really awesome, great people, and they got a great app, and it keeps getting better and better. So bring the boys back on stage here. Let's get into this MSTR news, right? There was a big viral article this weekend by Hodel, Maryland, talking about how MSTR is under attack by JPMorgan. And so in the beginning of the week, we had Empri Digital CEO coming out, and he really made a big splash. These videos went super viral, talking about how the margin requirement over the summer was increased from 50% to 95% for people who hold their MSTR shares with JPMorgan. And he sees that as an attack on the stock. He says that people who had MSTR at JPMorgan saw their accounts frozen. They couldn't get the stocks back. And there seems as if there's something nefarious going on here. And then when you consider the old financial order, JPMorgan, they were part of the foundation of the Federal Reserve. They've been fined to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars just over the last 20 years for breaking the law, breaking financial law, and doing some pretty bad things for some pretty bad people. They were, of course, Jeffrey Epstein's bankers of choice, and the latest emails show that they were very close. Jamie Dimon and Jeffrey Epstein were actually talking about how to protect his money. So, yeah, JPMorgan, of course, they're a financial behemoth, but they are also, you could say they are a nefarious actor in this game of global finance. What do you guys think about this? Do you think it's all just conspiracy theory? Do you think there's some truth behind it? And is JPMorgan attacking MSTR?
Jody knows I love a good conspiracy theory, but I think there's legs to a lot of them, as we've seen throughout the years. But some are absolutely crazy, so you can't give everything credence. But yeah, I think that seems like a direct attack. And if you think early on with Jamie Dimon, how he was talking like a pet rock, I think he was famous for calling it, right? And years ago, but then meanwhile they're buying up and then creating their own blockchain. They were buying up a bunch of Ethereum, right? And so it is definitely interesting. I think the strategy in general has been hit from all angles, right? Like they should be in the S&P 500, but they haven't been able to get in over and over again. That's what the calling is. And then the same thing's happening now with MSCI as well. So I don't know if that's a different subject altogether we want to wait towards, but
no, hop on into, explain that if you could.
Yeah. So MSCI, Morgan Stanley. So it's an index basically. And the way this works for those, and there's people probably know a lot more about this than I do, but in general, when you're a RIA, and you're these financial institutions, you're almost mandated basically, if something's in the S&P 500, to have a allocation of your fund in, the S&P 500. So by nature, if strategy would come in, you'd have to see this huge inflow of money that would have to go, by mandate basically into strategy. MSCI is another index there where they're looking to kick them out. So strategy currently is in there, but they're talking about in mid-January, JPMorgan and a bunch of people have publicly claimed, right, that they should not be in that fund. And so I wrote it down somewhere, $2.8 billion of forced selling if they have to get out of the MSCI. So I think some of that obviously is a huge news where you're starting to see, you buy the news, sell. What is it? By the
rumor.
All the news. Sorry, I had that backwards. But similar here, I think a lot of the selling you've seen is because of this, and people are starting to see that up front, and retail is trying to get ahead of that. But if God forbid that happens, it would not be the best for strategy.
Jody, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect blend of, if you've been in Bitcoin Twitter for a while, if there's a layer of finance that is a little bit unknown and a little bit opaque, then once someone peels the first layer back of that onion, wait, have you heard of MSCI? And they put indices together, and they, this is like they make 2 billion in revenue, which is impressive. And I think it definitely shows, oh, hey, there's bigger market forces at play versus, a single person in the government that decides, or Standard & Poor's deciding, hey, who's included in the S&P 500. You have these, indice makers, MSCI, that are putting together, okay, what should be considered part of these ETFs, these indexes. But it's somewhat like the perfect storm of like, here's a little bit of this massive company that's unknown outside of, hardcore Wall Street people, that has such an impact and influence on markets. They definitely want to latch onto that because it has the perfect ingredients of a conspiracy of this company that could be driven by a nefarious actor, someone that's like anti-Bitcoin. I think in some reasonable way, like we've talked to enough treasury companies, if you don't have an operating business, and I think in Saylor's response, I think is telling, like he does point to his operating business, which is people don't realize how big it is. Yeah, it's a very much a very large software business. If you go to their conference, we went to last year in May in Orlando, it's going to come up in February in Las Vegas. Most of it, the conference is actually about, their business intelligence side. Hey, here's all these cool like tablets and dashboards that you can make for your healthcare, company or hospital. That's totally not Bitcoin related. Bitcoin's a much smaller portion of that conference. So all of that to say is that I think Saylor has a good point from his rebuttal of, here's all these things that we're doing. We're putting our capital to work. But I think in his response, he is also showing that if you're a treasury company that just launched and you don't have a good idea, that maybe there is a reason you don't have a good idea of a operating business to like generate cash flows, and you're just holding Bitcoin. Maybe MSCI does have a point that this is more of a fund than operating business, which is not good for our bags. If you're someone that, owns treasury companies, this isn't great for it. But I think it's a fair challenge for someone like MSCI to say, hey, like, we're going to treat you as a fund unless you show that you're really running multiple hotels. Metaplanet, are you renovating that new hotel? Are you doing more than just, raising capital by Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think the line they draw in the sand, MSCI, is if 50% or more of your enterprise value is in a digital asset, then you're a fund. That's the line that they're thinking about drawing. So just to put some dates to this, MSCI, they were the first index to put strategy in, right? And that led to passive funds coming in, and they're able to grow. And then they got into the NASDAQ 100. And then there was like the final dragon, the S&P 500, that there would be some decision within the coming months as to whether they would be able to join or not. But then MSCI came out with this report. It was actually over the summer that they first mentioned this, that they were considering changing the rules as to whether these DATs, these digital asset treasury companies, would be allowed into their indexes or not, because of the definition of whether they are a company or a fund. And so the story was pretty much dormant for a while. And then there was a update to the note that they put out on 10/10, the day of the crypto flash crash, which came out, I think, like 15 minutes before the tariff announcement that Trump made that caused the market to crash. So people are thinking that maybe the longer term selling after that was tied to this, that the Wall Street insiders had seen that this came out the same day. There's liquidity issues. There's a question about the index listing. Let's start selling off. And I mean, strategy's down 60% since July, right? I mean, it's pretty brutal price action. And then
I'll raise my hand there.
go for it.
I was just gonna say, like, I jokingly to Jody, I was like, I gotta just come out and say I bought strategy at 380, so it's like embarrassing, but I haven't sold a share still. So it's one of those things where it's like, all right, believe in something. I wish I, took some off and then bought in again lower. But I think right now it's first Green Day I remember in a while. So definitely won't put a ton of credence saying we're back quite yet. But with news like this, I think it's massive. And you do wonder if there's some back conversations happening to kind of ostracize them as a company. And then what it does too is it starts to put this like precedent for other companies. Like let's say Tesla was thinking about buying a lot more Bitcoin. They're never going to get to like that 50% yet, but it does take away a lot of what America's founded on, and like prosperity and capitalism. And like, it's like, all right, well, you're trying to kill off this industry then slowly by not allowing the big money to flow in. So it is big news though. You shouldn't dismiss that at all. I think that's pretty powerful.
But I mean, from a logical standpoint, you also have to look at MSCI, and they have to look out for their index holders, right?
Yeah.
And there's been a huge euphoria and a big crash in these treasury companies over the last year. So I think they're trying to maybe protect their investors, as we saw in Japan. Japan is also putting in rules as to who can get like listed on the stock market if you're one of these digital asset companies, and looking into further restrictions on that because of the exponential blow up in Metaplanet that we've seen in the last year. So, I mean, I think there is some logic behind it. Of course, I don't think it's all just a pure attack on Bitcoin and the old cabal trying to go like this, So
it's interesting. Yeah,
we'll see how it plays out.
Definitely.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, we are heading towards the end of our time here, but I think let's touch on one more story, because I think that you guys might have some good color when it comes to this. New Hampshire, they approved the first Bitcoin-backed municipal bond, a $100 million issue collateralized with Bitcoin at 160%, with automatic liquidation near 130%, sending gains to the state's Bitcoin Economic Development Fund. So this is bit bonds. They're finally here in the real world. And New Hampshire is the first state to actually have a legitimate strategic Bitcoin reserve. And they signed into law. And now they have bit bonds, municipal bonds backed by Bitcoin. Talk about this. What do you guys think? Good, great, best ever?
You want to go first, Jodes?
Yeah, I think for me, it's following up with actual action to the strategic Bitcoin reserve for New Hampshire. I think is big to actually show, hey, we're gonna not just hold an asset and it's just gonna sit there, but like we talked about, putting those to work and giving at least an attempt at like having state-backed bonds that are going to be backed by Bitcoin. I think doing so in a conservative way. If you look at 160% collateralization, it should be able to handle, some decent price swings. We'll see if they bought the top at 126 and then they're feeling the pain here at 84, 85. But if they started this and they bought closer to 100 or below 100, I think they're going to be absolutely fine and not be liquidated or have to liquidate at 130%. So the good testing ground. And hope more states do it. New Hampshire is not the first state I would expect. I would not have voted for this.
Aren't they pretty libertarian?
Oh yeah, dude. They're live free or die, bro.
Yeah. I would. I'd expect that out of them, because they are usually the freedom state in terms of like having their own independent mind. I wrote some notes here before that I thought were important. So number one, the enabling law would require digital assets in reserve be held in compliant structures. So that could be IBIT, right, or other ETFs, or in qualified custody. So that's interesting for a lot of the custodians. Jody and I have a background there. But I think the bigger story here is like this is a bridge between $140 trillion of global debt markets. And you saw what Saylor's concocting with his different products that he's building out too. And so it's thinking of like Bitcoin in many different ways, and you're kind of meeting the buyer where they are, as Saylor talks about, because like there's only so many retail people that want to buy direct Bitcoin. There's a lot of people in like real estate or people that understand debt that are like, okay, this is a great deal for me. Go ahead, and if you think you're a mastermind with Bitcoin here, like by all means, as long as we're getting paid our money. So I think this opens the door. It always takes one state to like that famous meme of like, I was right. I don't know if the words are like, I was right this whole time, but it's like, crowds of people coming around this one guy who's been adamantly banging his fist and saying like, Bitcoin is the truth here. And then the second person, it's like the tipping point almost from Malcolm Gladwell. One person has to start it, a second person comes on, and slowly but surely, hopefully other states do follow this.
Yeah, I mean, Saylor always says that the real unlock that they've discovered in this 5-year journey with Bitcoin is the creation of digital credit. And this is digital credit, right, on the government level. And to see this, will Bitcoin have a impact on balancing the United States' horrible financial position? Hopefully, that's the idea, right? Or will Bitcoin just outlast the American government and it will topple under its own weight of debt? We should see.
One question I'd have too, for just to kind of go back to the Saylor situation earlier, is like, some of these new products that they have, right? Can they become, will more and more money of their revenue come in through operations in that way, right? Because if you think about it, like over time, if they get into like lending or if they get into digital credit at a much bigger, place, then it slowly creeps into like, all right, they're making a lot of money, in their operations and not just from holding, So that's why I'm still holding on personally. Not investment advice, of course, but that's my just logical thinking of where strategy ends up going. And they're starting to build that bridge right now. So we're living in a movie, man. We're watching it as we go here, Rob.
Yeah. And I think another thing when it comes to strategy is Bitcoin you want to hold on to for dear life, but we've seen these wild swings with strategy and it's actually fallen below MNAV now twice, right? So you got to be willing to sell when the getting's good. And if you see a 3 MNAV on that sucker, maybe you can sell that, maybe you can sell to MSTR. Maybe that's the portion of your Bitcoin portfolio that you're willing to sell and take profits in. So that's my thinking.
Nothing goes up forever except for Nvidia. All right.
It's also a K-shaped economy, right? So I could see by K-shaped, MSTR comes back, they're collateralized, 650,000 Bitcoin. If you were a smaller treasury company trading at a huge multiple and people are betting on growth, hey, this is like the meme stock of Bitcoin, then it's going to be like, it's hard to expect that coming back. So you might want to tax loss harvest, sell the position. If you still believe, I do think, market comes back, MSTR is going to rip. They just have so much Bitcoin. I do believe also management, they're going to be able to like execute. I trust a player like that. It's hard to trust every treasury company, that they're going to come back and they're going to perform well. And will we ever see a 10x MNAV again? I don't know. It's hard to bet on that.
Yeah, looking back on it, there was a mania this year. It was just in treasury companies. But yeah, you live, you learn, you grow, and hopefully you have more Bitcoin at the end of this year than you started with. But that's the dream, right? So
you'll love this, Rob. Before we go, Platitor, who's always probably pessimist in the room, but Bitcoin needs some pessimism.
A realist, yes,
he was calling out. He's like, I'm surprised that the shareholders that are down 90% on Naka haven't called a shareholder to talk about compensation packages. Like, why do they have $5 million in comp being paid out in fiat to these board of directors or to the C-suite? And interesting thing, I'm curious to see if we see some more of those corporate actions like shareholder votes put pressure on some of these management teams. Like, they can't control Bitcoin price going to 84, but they can certainly control, I think, overweighted comp. There's no reason somebody controlling a company that's just holding Bitcoin should be paid in fiat at that scale.
6 million in salaries for Naka, 18 million paid out to assist to Strive board members, right? And their C-suite. A lot of that was a bonus and sign-on packages and whatnot, but 18 million for the quarter is pretty crazy with their stock performance. And then you look at Pomp's pro cap,
400 million.
400 million. I think that's more based on performance, but still, that's
getting Tesla territory with
$1 trillion. $1 trillion for the CEO of a Bitcoin treasury company. That's what we're going to see next cycle. All right, boys. Well, that was fun. Yeah, that hour just flew by. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, everybody, if you are not yet signed up for our newsletter, please go do it. Bitcoin News Weekly. You'll find the links all over our website, bitcoinnews.com. You can subscribe right there and check out these guys, 21 Rates. They got some great guests. They're always really impressive with who they can find to come on their show. Their podcast comes out every week, multiple times a week.
Yeah, we need to be more consistent on when we drop it. But yeah, we have a few episodes, every week. Adam Back's probably the biggest name coming up. Our Twitter handle is at 21 Rates HQ. And yeah, we're doing these shows every Friday here with Rob and the Bitcoin News team. So a lot more to come. We're excited about it.
Yeah. So again, we're off this Friday, but the Friday stack returns after that, giving away Bitcoin. It's sort of like a game show. It's fun. We're talking about Bitcoin and Bitcoin news, of course, but it's in a much more freeform, entertaining, have a good Friday type of mood. So yes, very excited to be working with you guys in all these different capacities. Thank you for coming on the show. And everybody, we'll be back.
Have a good Thanksgiving. You got to wish the listeners happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving. I'm grateful for you guys, the audience, and for Bitcoin.
Love it.
Cheers.